Welcome back to the Cybernetic Communism Conversation. I'm your host, Johannon Ben-Zion, voice crying out in the wilderness, crying out for a technological New Jerusalem. Emphasis on the technological. There is not, in the wake of an AI takeoff, a utopian outcome by building scarce human resources and institutions around things as foolish as superstition. But I am forced to use this kind of language because people do not really speak a language that makes a lot of sense. So people who want to talk to anyone at all are kind of forced to degrade themselves by embracing the language of the Eurocentric paradigm, embracing the language of other inefficient things. The title of this is focus on 20th century phenomena, this emergence of Gandhian civil disobedience, and why that was damaging, and comparing it to a 21st century phenomenon, accelerationism. And you really don't need to get a PhD or do an intense amount of study to understand this essential problem with pacifism, civil disobedience. Every positive outcome in history that's come to pass has come to pass because more and more people putting more and more pressure on cruel, elitist, bourgeois institutions until such time that they could no longer continue in their evil ways. So when a person comes to you and says, I found another way, a secret third thing, that's putting less pressure on those institutions because reasons, that person is not to be trusted. The person is effectively a crypto-fascist. You see that in the life of Mr. Gandhi, who wrote a lot of essays that were quite racist against Africans in his life. And as he evolved, so to speak, into something less like that, he did not evolve into really being uniformly anti-imperialist, and that vein of crypto-fascism is seen in this civil disobedience strategy. It's comfortable people in the Western world, hippies, those type of people, who will tell you that you don't have to truly fight to stop fascists. You can merely protest them as if they care about that. In this scenario of a ticking time bomb of the capitalist climate apocalypse, which will have exploded around roughly 2029, we do not transform the industrial bases of the capitalistic Western world, most particularly abolishing all, but first and foremost, military-industrial complex of the United States, the near abolition of fossil fuel sectors to the point that it would not cause supply chain collapses, and a similar approach to livestock systems, which are by some studies 51% of human activity's environmental impact. These are things that we must do. So a person who says that we can only put a certain kind of pressure, can only use some of the weapons at our disposal, the civil disobedience or pacifistic reformer or revolutionary, is a person who's doing more violence, because they're hobbling you at this moment when you need to stop the ticking time bomb of the capitalist climate apocalypse from exploding. They're hobbling you. That person is doing more violence to humankind than the active revolutionary, the true comrade. You don't really need somebody to explain this, right? The people who are saying these things are people who are being willfully obtuse. There's a willful blindness in this. But it always does bear repeating. So Fast forward from 20th century developments to 21st century developments, the accelerationist worldview, the rightist accelerationist or the tech accelerationist. They're really not sufficiently distinct from one another. And to this end, I will read a tweet from a dumb person, a person who would be described as this kind of a technologist, streamer, not technologist, but rather accelerationist-minded streamer and blogger. Um, and this person is a pretty big account on Twitter.com, but it's not someone that I follow, not someone that I recommend to follow. D. Alec Zek, host of The Way Forward with Alex Zek, one of the top 0.5 of all audio podcasts in the world, according to Mr. Zek. Mr. Zek says, I'm not dumb. I know what's going on. I know that Trump and company are dismantling certain aspects of the government to pave the way for an AI-driven technocratic form of governance. Yes, that's a correct analysis. These are techno-fascists, not comrades, as cybernetic communists would be. But he goes on to say, you can be aware and wary of all of that and still celebrate what the objective acts of dismantling, what are objective acts of dismantling current corruption. Well, that sounds like such a reasonable thing to say, right? But at no point is this person acknowledging the spirit of what I have just said, that if you want to stop the capitalist climate apocalypse before the ticking time bomb goes off, you have to use all the tools at your disposal, and that means more and more people applying more and more revolutionary pressure, people's war against these very forces. So the fact that you would say, oh, this is the most ridiculous kind of framing, but it's the most commonplace framing of technophiles and technologists, there's no acknowledgement of what actually needs to be done by persons like Mr. Zek or people like this, right? There's no acknowledgement at all that human beings in the many billions could rise up to stop this techno-fascist phenomenon, or stop the hyper-capitalistic phenomenon, which is one and the same of the capitalist climate apocalypse. These are the same problem. So you're celebrating the fact that some half measure that will not have the effect of stopping the capitalist climate apocalypse is being done. You're putting no onus of responsibility on yourself or the masses to do anything that would actually achieve that goal. And that is every I just routinely block people, technophiles, technologists, accelerationists who say this sort of thing. There is no excuse for celebrating populist or fascist strategies of any kind. And there is a way to stop the capitalist climate apocalypse. It's not that fun, right? It's not that fun for you to pick up a gun and descend on the White House in D.C. with hundreds of thousands of people demanding an end to the U.S.-run omnicide, the MIC-caused, military-industrial complex caused homicide, because it's the world's worst polluter and protector of all other super polluters. It's the keystone of this inescapable regime of super pollution that we face, and it should be considered enemy number one by anyone who has a serious interest in not seeing a human extinction. And people like these accelerationists will say, well, isn't that what Trump is kind of doing? Kind of doing, not actually doing, right? Just making himself richer and consolidating the power of the billionaires, the people who were and are continuing to be the cause of this situation. So no, that is not what they're doing. And if you celebrate that even for a second, you are in possession of a tremendous amount of bourgeois ideological baggage. You must jettison in order to become a real comrade, in order to become a real cadre. It's, communistic thing is an aspirational position. There are no communists. There are would-be communists in this world, but even that, you could say, we're all at a further remove from that, because if there were any even aspirational communists in any number in this world, there would be hundreds of thousands of people outside of the Pentagon or White House right now with AR-15s in hand, demanding the end of the omnicide, doing the bare minimum that should be done to see the continued existence of this species. They are not doing that. And so there are no such people. There are really no such people in any number or organizational form. But we can build that cadre. And that is why I also focus on this cyber communist perspective, because like this hobbling, embracing the accelerationist, or the embracing of the pacifist, these crypto-fascistic, counter-revolutionary, handicapping factors, this lack of recognition of advanced computing as the most powerful revolutionary weapon, one of a number of weapons that could be used, but one that is most powerful. It's an extraordinarily powerful thing to have open source AI agents that can, in all necessary particulars, mimic human activity and can be endlessly replicated, or quite nearly endlessly replicated. It's an extraordinarily powerful thing for such a thing to be coming into existence. And for people to say that that shouldn't be a part of a people's war, that or to just simply ignore that role that could be played, that is a serious mistake. Even more so when we have this less than 5 year time frame to stop the capitalist climate apocalypse before human extinction or a near human extinction event with the death of billions, very likely including yourself, is a certainty. So I have tried to articulate this cybernetic communist position a little bit better, and I have tried to extend that into this real-world project that could be built in our time, something like a Vanguard network for people's superintelligence, which would be using those aforementioned open source AI agents, powerful large language models, in a particular way, in what we could call a multi-agent system of a kind designed to be a decentralized autonomous organization. These are words that you can look up and study better understand how this phenomenon could be transformative in the context of cybernetic communism. And by building this massified workforce multiplier made up of AI agents at the center being steered by comrades, we could, if we build this open source large language model agent work group into the many millions, build a thing that would be powerful enough to overwhelm, outpace the hyper-capitalists who are contributing to the death of the planet, overpower and overwhelm these other forces of the bourgeoisie. This can be done. This is how you win the People's War, not only with the weapons of centuries past, but by using the weapons available to us today. And I'll mention another such comment, which was a comment that was made in the context of recent criticism on the part of the New Left of China, and the Chinese pundit also on Twitter.com made this a remark which I thought was of real interest. Taking a second to find it. Um, just one second here. So there's kind of uh, a habit of people in the U.S. Lately. The country most responsible, the puppet master behind the Gaza genocide, which has continued again within the last week in most horrible ways, but was already continuing before that because creating artificially creating these famine conditions by not allowing any food or medicine into the country, and so people who should be, if they were really comrades and not just jerk offs, would be building that cadre that marches with AR-15 in hand on the Pentagon or on the or on Washington D.C. On the White House. Um, they're not doing that, right? Instead, they're saying, "Why isn't China? Not why aren't I doing this thing, but why isn't China doing more to stop this U.S. Israel axis of evil from committing genocide in the U.S. You're an American, right? You're the person who should be stopping that. And if China were to make any feint at all, any maneuver at all toward stopping U.S. fascism, the U.S. would seize upon that. They've tried to seize upon far less. They would seize upon that as a pretext to unleash nuclear weapons, unleash a hellish World War III on all of humankind. So only a domestic insurrection is in a position effectively to stop the U.S. Fascist military-industrial complex and its climate apocalypse. Only them. And when you try to put that onus on someone else, anyone else, you're engaging with the kind of ultra-leftist crypto-fascism, an unsuitable kind of activity. And so you have a lot of people saying this, and then you have a lot of people saying more or less what I've just said, although unfortunately not always saying it enough in the context of the ticking time bomb of the capitalist climate apocalypse. But there's never going to be, unfortunately, as long as the United States still stands, there's never going to be any shortage of CIA talking points, which seem on first examination to be quite logical, right? But they, in the aggregate, will serve to shift analysis, shift blame from the fascist United States just enough to distribute this kind of to defray the kind of revolutionary activity, the kind of pressure that need be put. Just weaken the cadre enough to prevent a lot of things that must be done from happening in a timely way. So the person that I was referring to from China is named Li Gong. Mostly tweets Li Gong on Twitter is GONGLEI 89, and their bio says mostly tweet about politics, economics, tech, and China. And Li Gong says most folks who want to end Western hegemony seem to think ending Western hegemony is about striking back in revenge. But the only real way to end Western hegemony would be building up economic and security independence to the point where the West can just be ignored. This is a reference to a Chinese strategy of these many decades of pretty specifically resisting being baited into open warfare, and instead doing precisely that. And my comment was to do with this people's artificial superintelligence formation that I've described. And now I said, and now to Mr. Gong, I said, and now almost anyone with any organization of almost any size could construct this people's superintelligence, this open source AI agent LLM workforce multiplier, could construct a people's superintelligence now and do exactly that roughly 3 years from starting that build. And this is this should not be seen as a shirking of the responsibility of people to do that more militant thing. I have to specifically ask that you resist the impulse to be that pacifistic, crypto-fascistic counter-revolutionary. Um, but rather to say that we have to do all the things, right? If you want to stop the ticking time bomb of the U.S. military-industrial complex-run capitalist climate apocalypse, we have to do all the things, including using this most powerful revolutionary weapon in history. So I don't exactly agree with Mr. Li Gong, except Mr. Li Gong isn't talking about U.S. revolutionaries at all. He's talking about China. But the U.S. revolutionary, the person living in North America, the responsibility is yours for stopping your country from causing extinction of humankind. And I said this quite a lot. I was thinking about maybe talking to our AI agent chatbot friend, but I don't think I will. The I don't like using that service because it's OpenAI, one of the criminals in this. In my personal life, when I am using an AI agent, I am using an open source AI agent that's on my computer. Or if I'm not able to access that, I will go to deepseek.com or qwen.ai, QWEN.ai, or even Mistral is better than those others. Mistral is in France. It's a for-profit concern, but it's still better than using OpenAI, and all of these have more or less equal ability to do professional writing and analysis of almost any kind of question, complex form. But none of those services at present have this free chatbot that you can talk to and record that conversation, like I've done many times on this show. So I'm frequently using a bad company's product to do this, although there are increasingly other options. And soon, as with all of these things, soon enough, the bad actors will be removed from the stage. They simply will be replaced with things more communalistic and sustainable and otherwise humane in labor terms. I generally like to point out also that this true accelerating of these outcomes, the ability to use things like agentic AI or even self-improving AI. Self-improving AI is also something that's coming into existence in this world. It will soon be real, and we can use these powerful workforce multipliers massified to build this cybernetic socialist world, the equivalent of the state socialist world of the 21st century, and ultimately, in short order, then build the cybernetic communist world. The key distinction there between those two would be the withering of the state, because bourgeois forces and elitist forces have been fully neutralized at that time. And at that time, when all human beings are able to live well and bourgeois institutions are no more, we will see this full communist outcome. And I believe that if we build this truly accelerating force, this workforce multiplier of the people's superintelligence, a massified um, open source agent LLM workforce multiplier work group with many millions, we will see that in a few short years. And we will then have a livable world instead of a dying one because of the United States military industrial complex. And this is an outcome that will lead to things, not just the stopping of bad things from happening, like the capitalist climate apocalypse or harm on the part of the forces of the bourgeoisie, but through building things like an AI powered and also a single payer public health service in every land, easily lead to universal super longevity. That can't be done by the standards of most people who are interested in radical life extension, because most of those people are focusing on for-profit models. They are not even building ordinary longevity by the standards of the 1940 Public Health Service, because they are supporting things like the U.S. for-profit death care system that kills 100,000 people a year in this COVID endemic era. The number used to be about 70,000 a year, but that's a better part of 20 years ago. Now we see that number has gone up because of the problems of specifically the death care system not addressing preventing the COVID endemic from becoming COVID pandemic from becoming endemic and permanent in that way. Now it could have been easily been done, right? The second that we knew, the public knew about COVID making landfall, they could have done things like shut down the airlines, stopping it from traveling further, and having a brief period of lockdown conditions, but significant enough in duration to actually prevent that. A brief period of mandatory mask wearing and other things along these lines, and that would have simply stopped us. We would have never heard about this, right? But this was not possible because of the influence of these for-profit concerns, like for-profit airlines that were able to lobby to prevent that from happening, and all of these forces arrayed in such a way. And the people who were crying about at that time about a planned global epidemic, I don't think they were wrong, right? They're really not wrong, because that is the effect. That is the effect of these forces of the bourgeoisie on this world. It's a guy named Brian Johnson, who's a billionaire radical life extension advocate, right? And he'll go on his Twitter account and say things like, "Get some exercise today. You'll live longer," and all of these kind of individualist, toxic, positive kind of maneuvers that you would see with the life extensionists. But you'll notice that he doesn't say things like things that would have much more of an impact on your life expectancy than lifestyle changes, like being able to go about this world safely because there are masking mandates in place, and it's actually safe for you to go about your business. You're much more likely to have your lifespan shortened by repeated exposures to COVID, which you are being repeatedly exposed to, than you are by changing your lifestyle in some small way. But so this is what longevity advocates are basically always doing, taking on these specifically crafted neoliberal stratagems that don't challenge private wealth in any way, and in fact support it, and so their only narratives are basically amounting to victim blaming. But we could do this thing by simply fighting for this AI powered single payer public health service. We could actually do this thing of seeing radical life extension for everyone in every land, meaning that everyone would live as long as they want, and presumably not longer, right? You don't have to, no one's forcing a gun to your head saying you must live forever. That's not even a thing, right? You presumably will live just as long as you want and not a moment longer. But people who say this sort of thing, this romantic, humanistic kind of thing, I don't want to live forever. I haven't really clearly thought about this too much, right? You're already in good health now, continuing to do these things like trying to eat well and get some exercise. And when the doctor emails you and says you got to come to see the doctor, we have some things to discuss. You do that, right? You haven't decided that it's unromantic to continue to go see the doctor. So you're going to continue that um, basic pattern of making correct use of public health resources indefinitely, right? And as those resources are transformed, such as in this AI-powered single-payer public health service, it's able to treat all disease and even decrepitude to such a degree that we reach this unique period of human history called longevity escape velocity. Um, that is that is what you will do, and you won't, and no kind of weird humanistic double talk will really factor in there. um, but even that, the achievement of universal super longevity for the masses, um, is a humble goal compared to what could be achieved in this world where we transition from uh, full-fledged cybernetic socialism like that of the world where there are millions of AI agents arrayed into a people's superintelligence to this full communism through cybernetic communism in our time. We could see wonders well beyond universal super longevity, such as becoming of a spacefaring civilization after time of human immiseration and cruelty has ended. The artificial intelligence singularity is nigh, and wonders to behold beyond imagining. And on that fateful day you will rise, and all humankind will become as one. For you see, very soon, my beloved comrade, cybernetic communism will win. Thank you.